Welcome to Book Buzz Reviews and Summaries. Book Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. There is a voice inside you, a cunning, relentless voice that whispers, "You've earned this. You deserve more. You are special." It flatters you when you succeed, excuses you when you fail, and blinds you when the path is clear. That voice is the ego, and make no mistake, it is the enemy of greatness. Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy takes you on a journey inside the human mind, exposing the subtle, relentless ways ego sabotages our ambitions, blinds us to reality, and poisons our potential. It is not an external battle, it is fought within. The enemy does not live in others, it lives in your reflection, in your pride, in your desire for validation. Holiday divides the struggle into three arenas: aspiration, success, and defeat. In the first, ego whispers that you are already enough, stealing your hunger to learn, grow, and work silently for mastery. In the second, it intoxicates you with applause, blinding you to humility, discipline, and purpose. And in the third, it poisons your failures, convincing you that defeat defines you, rather than refines you. But here is the liberating truth. Ego is not invincible. It can be understood, mastered, and transformed. The greatest humans in history, Napoleon, Seneca, Katharine Graham, Howard Hughes, and countless unsung heroes, succeeded not because they were immune to ego, but because they learned to rise above it. They chose discipline over delusion, humility over hubris, and purpose over praise. This book is a call to arms, not to fight others, but to fight yourself, to recognize that the true obstacle to greatness is not the world outside, but the one inside, to choose the quiet power of mastery over the loud mirage of recognition, to embrace failure as a teacher, success as a test, and aspiration as the fertile ground for relentless learning. So, if you want to build something lasting, achieve something meaningful, or leave a legacy worth remembering, the first battle is clear: silence the ego. Let it teach, not control. Let it warn, not blind. Let it fuel growth, not destruction. The enemy within is patient, cunning, and constant, but so is your capacity for discipline, humility, and resilience. The journey begins now, to aspire without arrogance, to succeed without surrendering your integrity, and to rise from failure with unbreakable strength. This is not just a book. This is your blueprint for greatness. The enemy is within, but so is the power to overcome. Part 1. The Enemy Within. Understanding the Ego. There is a voice inside you, a whisper that tells you you've already done enough, that you already know enough, that you deserve more than you've earned. It flatters you when you succeed and excuses you when you fail. It shouts for attention when you're praised and sulks when you're ignored. That voice is the ego. In his powerful book, Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday doesn't point outward. He points inward. He holds up a mirror to the human soul and asks, what truly stops us from achieving greatness? The answer, he declares, is not a lack of talent, luck, or opportunity. The greatest barrier to success lies within. The ego that blinds us to truth, deafens us to learning, and poisons our relationships, our ambitions, and even our peace. Holiday begins his exploration by taking us to the crossroads where every dreamer, creator, and leader must pass, the moment of aspiration. Whether you are an artist seeking recognition, a leader climbing toward influence, or a student beginning a new pursuit, you carry two voices inside you. One is humble, hungry, and curious. The other, the ego, is loud, impatient, and proud. The ego demands immediate validation. It wants applause before mastery. And in that desire, it kills growth. To illustrate this eternal struggle, Holiday draws from history's most remarkable figures, individuals who achieved greatness precisely because they conquered their egos. He reminds us of Howard Hughes, whose brilliance turned to madness when ego overtook discipline, of John Boyd, the legendary fighter pilot who lived by the creed to be or to do, of Katharine Graham, who quietly built the Washington Post by listening more than she spoke, and of Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who taught that mastery begins with humility. Each story pulses with the same message: ego is the enemy of progress. It tempts us to seek recognition over results, applause over mastery, fame over purpose. Holiday's insight hits hard. The ego is not confidence, it is its counterfeit. True confidence is quiet, steady, earned through work. Ego is loud, fragile, desperate for validation. He writes with the precision of a philosopher and the urgency of a general. He reminds us that greatness requires restraint. When we are just starting out, the ego whispers, "You deserve success now." When we rise, it shouts, "You are untouchable." And when we fail, it moans, "You're nothing." It is a shapeshifter, always ready to sabotage us, no matter what stage we're in. Holiday divides the human journey into three great battles: aspire, success, and failure, and shows that ego lurks in each of them. In aspire, it prevents us from learning. In success, it blinds us to reality. In failure, it crushes our resilience. And yet, he insists, ego is not inevitable. It can be managed, subdued, even transformed into fuel for humility, growth, and greatness. In part 1, Holiday's tone is almost that of a mentor sitting across from you, his voice calm but firm. He challenges the reader to strip away the illusions of grandeur and face the truth. You are not yet what you could be. This is not an insult, it's liberation. Because when ego falls silent, humility can speak. And humility, he says, is the foundation of every enduring success. He calls us to be students again, to be relentless learners, unafraid to ask, "What can I do better?" He reminds us that arrogance blinds, but curiosity enlightens. The greatest minds, Einstein, Seneca, Da Vinci, remained eternal students. They sought not applause, but understanding. Ego resists this humility because it equates learning with weakness. But Holiday exposes this lie. The truly strong are never afraid to learn. In the battle of aspiration, ego is a clever enemy. It tells you to chase followers instead of skill, fame instead of mastery. It convinces you to talk about your dreams more than you work on them. But Holiday dismantles this delusion with a brutal simplicity. Talk depletes you. Every moment spent boasting is a moment stolen from the work itself. The humble do not speak of their potential, they build it. Holiday reminds us that real greatness grows in silence. Think of the craftsman perfecting his art in obscurity, the athlete training before dawn, the writer rewriting one sentence 100 times. They are not driven by applause, but by mastery. They understand a truth the ego cannot grasp. It is better to be unknown and excellent than celebrated and hollow. And here Holiday's voice crescendos, not in anger, but in urgency. He says, before you can conquer the world, you must conquer yourself. Before you can lead others, you must learn to follow truth. Before you can rise, you must kneel to humility. Ego promises greatness, but it delivers mediocrity. Humility demands patience, but it builds legacy. So, in this first act of his timeless work, Ryan Holiday gives us a warning wrapped in wisdom. If you wish to build something meaningful, your art, your career, your life, you must first silence the enemy within. For the path to greatness begins not with pride, but with purpose. And as the curtain falls on this opening part, one question lingers, powerful, haunting, transformative. Will you let your ego lead you to illusion, or your humility lead you to greatness? Part 2. The Battle of Success. Staying grounded when you rise. Success. What a dangerous word. It dazzles, blinds, and seduces even the wisest among us. It is the silent battlefield where ego grows fat and humility starves. In Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday warns us that success, far from being the end of our struggle, is often the beginning of our downfall. For when the world begins to applaud, the enemy within begins to whisper, "You are special. You are untouchable." Holiday reminds us that the higher you climb, the more seductive ego becomes. It begins as a flicker of pride and swells into an inferno of self-importance. The very discipline that earned your victory begins to fade. The humility that kept you learning begins to disappear. You begin to believe that your greatness is self-created, that the rules no longer apply to you. And that, he says, is when you fall. History, Holiday shows us, is littered with brilliant minds destroyed not by failure, but by success. He recounts the story of Napoleon, whose ambition transformed into arrogance and led to his ruin. He recalls George Marshall, the humble American general who refused to let praise corrupt his sense of duty. And he celebrates those who, even at the peak of power, held their egos in check through humility, discipline, and self-awareness. Success has a strange way of revealing character. When you are unknown, your flaws are hidden in the shadows. But when the spotlight hits you, every weakness grows visible. Ego thrives in that light. It whispers that you deserve special treatment, that you are smarter than your critics, that your instincts are infallible. It isolates you from the very voices that once guided your growth. Holiday paints this truth with brutal clarity. Success is not a resting place. It is a test. The applause is a temptation, not a reward. Those who survive it are those who remember that mastery is never complete, that learning never ends. They treat success as a beginning, not an ending. He contrasts two types of people: the ego-driven performer, who chases praise and attention, and the purpose-driven craftsman, who chases excellence. The former burns out. The latter builds legacy. The ego-driven mind asks, "How can I be recognized?" The humble mind asks, "How can I improve?" In the midst of success, Holiday calls for a return to purpose over passion. Passion, he warns, can be intoxicating. It burns hot and fast, but rarely endures. Purpose, on the other hand, is cool, steady, and lasting. It asks for discipline, not drama. It builds quietly. It doesn't demand applause. It demands consistency. Ego craves to arrive. Purpose demands you continue. He reminds us of Bill Belichick, the legendary football coach who shuns fame, avoids interviews, and focuses entirely on the game. His teams win because his ego never does. Holiday's message here is sharp. The moment you stop working like an underdog, you start losing like a king. He also shares the wisdom of Seneca, who warned that wealth, praise, and power do not make a man great. They only reveal who he already is. Success does not corrupt, it exposes. If you carried ego with you before victory, it will only grow stronger afterward. But if you built your path with humility and gratitude, success will magnify your integrity. Holiday's words strike with surgical precision. Ego feeds on comfort. It thrives when you start believing you've made it. It feeds when you stop listening, when you start managing perception instead of performance. To defeat it, You must do what the truly great do. Stay a student, even at the top. He challenges the reader. Can you be praised and still stay grounded? Can you lead without arrogance? Can you remain hungry when you have enough? These are not small questions. They are the defining questions of enduring greatness. The antidote to ego in success, Holiday says, is gratitude and self-awareness. Gratitude keeps you humble. It reminds you that no victory is achieved alone. Self-awareness keeps you honest. It forces you to confront your flaws even when no one dares to. Together, they protect you from the intoxication of success. And then he delivers one of his most piercing insights. The moment you think you've arrived, you've already begun to decline. Every empire, every company, every career that collapsed did so not because of failure, but because success made its builders forget the struggle that made them strong. The ego tells you that you've reached the summit, but the truth is, there is no summit. There is only the next step, the next challenge, the next lesson. As part 2 closes, Holiday leaves us with a truth that is both sobering and empowering. Success is not a reward to be enjoyed, but a responsibility to be managed. Ego will always try to make your success about you, but the wise know that success must serve something larger, something greater than personal pride. The greats do not let ego write their story. They let purpose do it. They do not perform for applause. They perform for mastery. And because of that, their names live on long after applause fades. So, if in your life you are beginning to rise, remember this. Stay grounded, stay grateful, stay learning. The world may celebrate you, but the moment you celebrate yourself too loudly, you stop hearing the music of growth. And as Ryan Holiday's voice grows quiet at the end of this chapter, one final truth lingers like a whisper. Success doesn't destroy the humble. It only destroys the proud. Part 3, Defeat, the final battle with the ego. When the applause fades, when the triumph turns into silence, when the world that once praised you begins to forget your name, what remains? This is where Ryan Holiday's final confrontation with the ego begins. Not in the glory of victory, but in the humbling quiet of defeat. Most people think ego shows itself only in success, in arrogance, pride, and vanity. But Holiday tells us the truth few dare to face. Ego is often loudest when we fall. It whispers poison into our pain, convincing us that we're victims, that the world is unfair, that our failures define us. Yet in this broken space lies the opportunity for our greatest transformation. To rebuild without illusion, to rise without delusion, to be humbled and wiser than before. Holiday draws upon stories that remind us defeat is not the end. It's the forge where character is reforged. Look at Ulysses S. Grant, whose business failures nearly ruined him, yet he returned to lead a nation. Or Eleanor Roosevelt, who faced betrayal, grief, and humiliation, yet turned those wounds into compassion and moral courage. Their secret? They did not let the ego interpret failure as final. They saw it as feedback, as fuel for the next climb. The author exposes how the ego, when unchecked, turns defeat into destruction. It makes us blind to lessons, deaf to truth, and addicted to self-pity. But when mastered, failure becomes our greatest teacher. It humbles the soul, sharpens the mind, and clears away the fog of self-importance. Defeat, in its rawest form, is the ultimate ego detox. Holiday's message here is as piercing as ever. Do not waste your suffering. Every setback, every humiliation, every moment of being overlooked. They are not curses. They are chisels, carving away the excess of your ego, revealing the raw strength of who you really are. He challenges us to rise again, not with swagger, but with stillness. Not with pride, but with purpose. For greatness, he insists, is not about winning every battle. It's about continuing the fight long after the world stops watching. As he writes, we will be tempted to think our failures are unfair, that the world owes us more. But the truth is, the world owes us nothing, and that realization sets us free. To live beyond ego is to accept this truth fully, that the measure of our character is not in how high we climb, but in how quietly and courageously we stand when the mountain crumbles beneath us. So when defeat comes, and it will, remember Holiday's wisdom. Don't curse the fall, use it. Let it strip you of illusions. Let it refine your purpose. Let it humble you, not break you. Because it's only when we stop being driven by ego that we begin to be guided by something far greater: clarity, humility, and strength. This final act of ego is the enemy is not about victory. It's about transcendence. It's about becoming untouchable, not because we've conquered the world, but because we've conquered ourselves. 3 key takeaways from the book. Takeaway 1. Ego is the silent saboteur of aspiration. Before you've achieved anything, ego tells you that you're already enough. It whispers, why start from the bottom? Why struggle when you deserve recognition now? But greatness doesn't come from listening to that voice. It comes from humility, relentless learning, and work that speaks louder than words. To build your dreams, you must silence the ego, embrace the grind, and stay hungry, always hungry, for mastery. Takeaway 2. Success is the ultimate test of humility. When you rise, the world applauds, and the ego grows louder. It convinces you that you are untouchable, that your instincts are flawless. Holiday reminds us, success is not a reward, it's a test. Gratitude, self-awareness, and future mastery depends on the work. And purpose are your armor. Stay grounded, stay curious. Even at the peak, keep learning, keep listening, and keep building. Legacy is built on humility, not applause. Takeaway 3. Failure is the forge of resilience. Defeat is inevitable, but it does not define you. Ego makes you believe it does. When we embrace failure without letting pride interfere, we discover our greatest lessons. We learn, we adapt, we grow stronger. The people who rise again and again do so because they've mastered humility, they've silenced ego, and they've transformed setbacks into fuel for greatness. So here's the truth. Your ego is patient, relentless, and cunning, but so is your power to overcome it. Aspire without arrogance. Succeed without surrendering your integrity. Rise after failure, stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than ever. Silence the ego. Master yourself. Build your legacy. Because the enemy is within, but so is the power to conquer it. Thanks for listening to Book Buzz Reviews and Summaries.